I invite our guest speakers and request all my viewers to stay tuned. So when we speak of construction, like how suitable are lightweight structures for airport terminal construction, and how do you think these can be tailored to address the changes or challenges of different climatic conditions?
Yes, lightweight infrastructure, the most important thing. The first of all, it reduces your construction time. It reduces your structural load. You don't need to go for bigger foundations, large infrastructures, larger areas. And the beauty of this is many of the things can be prefabricated. When it's prefabricated, you just assembly there on the site, whether it's a new airport or whether it's a brownfield airport where the operation is still happening and you need to expand the airport. This lightweight structures plays a major role in, uh, for the rapid construction and the scalability, basically. Second thing is the cost efficiency. You know, because of the reduced structural load, a lot of cost is gone out there. You don't really need to invest on the foundation. For any building, the major is the foundation. The major cost factor, the capex is the foundation. So you are not going to invest that. Then second, it can be reusable. It can be scalable. It can be, modified as per the architectural view, as per the architectural perspective. It spans along. It doesn't have that restriction of, spanning across length. So it gives you also modular kind of a grid to work around. So light infrastructure or lightweight infrastructure or construction is a must for any growing industries going forward. Reason being that it's more of reusable. The more you go lighter, the more you go low structural load, then it's always better for you to expand, to scale, and to move faster to to accommodate the operational requirements and the rising demands in a very phased manner. And when I say phased manner, like not to attempt all the requirements at one go, but it can be in a phased manner so that it doesn't disrupt your operations or your customer experience or the journey. And the most important is the sustainability. At the end, we are talking about other sustainability, like you said. And the best part is, yes, with technology, you don't need to be very rigid with, heavy structures. When you go lightweight structure, you have the possibility of reorganizing the space, the function. Like, for example, older conventional days, you had the check-in counters and all. Now you don't have it. You just have the e-gates to enter through. You just have the biometrics for anything. So you carry the complete digital, the complete information, the complete journey is in your phone or a smart watch. Tomorrow it might be in your palm or a finger ring. So it all depends on what I mean to say. All this is possible because we are adapting to the new technology and we are going light. We are adapting at the same faster space as the technology is advancing. We as architects, as construction leaders, are not being lagging behind in comparison to tech-enabled, developers. So we are also at the same speed. We can follow them and we can go hand in hand along with them to achieve the requirements, the demanding requirements. I think that's all.
Second question would be to Mr. Juzer. So I think you have mentioned three challenges in your talk, net zero and green. So how do you think the government is addressing these problems? What more do you think the government has to do, or how do you think these can be mitigated?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes. So the government is, you may be aware that recently there have been certain bills and laws that have been passed in India which allow now for carbon trading to officially start in India. So the government has introduced something called the CCTS program, that is the Carbon Credit Trading Scheme. And it's already been introduced for 4 sectors, and airports and hotels are going to come up shortly. I'm told by late 2026 and 2027, airports will come under the mandate of the carbon credit trading scheme of the government of India. What does this scheme say is that like the PAT scheme, I don't know if we are aware of the PAT scheme, that was a performance achievement trade scheme which is going on for airports in India. The government is going to set a particular benchmark of carbon emission intensity for all airports. And they have a methodology of doing all this. And if you are meeting that benchmark, it's good. If you are below that benchmarks, you will be issued some carbon credits, which you could trade and you could encash on that. And if you are above that benchmark, you will have to then buy carbon credits to meet your compliance. So it's a carbon trading scheme. So that's going to be made mandatory for airports. And that's what the government of India is doing in its endeavor to reduce the carbon emission for India. That's one area. The second thing is on newer airports that are coming up is the Environmental Impact Assessment Committee, which is very much responsible before the airport comes up, are mandating that almost most of the new airports, they will have to meet the GRIHA standards or the LEED or the IGBC green standards. And also certain areas of the project have to establish net zero in terms of water or energy. So that's also being mandated as a part of the Government of India's directives. Thank you.
Okay, great. I have a question to Rinor here. Like Juzer has mentioned about the Government of India initiative. Is there anything else? I mean, I think you are a person with international experience. So if you could add any points to this, it'd be really great. By any other governments.
Yeah, thank you. In Abu Dhabi, it was they had their own rating system, which is called Estidama, and one of the components of Estidama was that because Abu Dhabi is in the desert, it was water reduction and water use. So landscape, the requirement was you could only use 1 liter of water per square meter per day, which is very small amount. So what we ended up doing is we did a lot of landscapes by using stones and hardscapes to kind of spread out the use of water throughout the landscape. So yes, government is very important when it comes to setting up like rules and regulations for how much an airport can use, whether it's energy or water. And it's quite difficult because they spend a lot of energy, and it's very difficult to set up rules for them. They always kind of have to break some rules from LEED to actually get some points. So yes, I agree that government needs to start thinking only about airports and how we can make a green system that's only regarding an airport.
Okay, thank you. I have my second question for Monalisha. So when they speak about designing airports, how do architects evaluate the weak points, the strengths, the threats, and the issues when they do that?
See, let me start with the issues. Everything starts with the issues first. When I talk on the issues, the shared understanding between different stakeholders in terms of the designing, in terms of the shared vision, what is exactly required for the airport. Like when I say the stakeholders are the airlines. It can be the airlines, the airport operators, the environmentalists, the government, or the Airport Authority of India, or the Civil Aviation Department of that country. Everybody has a different requirement, different standards, and the major challenge to achieve is that we have a limited capex. The difference between the capex and the design, is always a challenge. To achieve the design as per the requirement, understanding it has to be the best airport, it has to meet all guidelines, and then we have a UDF, tag onto that. We have a limit like per square meter only this much can be, spent, and then that is compared to another airport again. So that comparison is always becomes an issue, and on top of it, the operational challenges, the requirement, the ever-growing tech, the new generation technology is coming, it's evolving very fast. We took upkeep, along with the technology is a must. And the way we design, like Rinor said, the way we used to design is that we wanted to expand, like till date, it has to be expand the best. But at the same time, we do not try to pace along with the technology. So that is the biggest issue. The technology is not much understood at a lower level or at a very high strategic level. It's understood by the middle management or the middle level layer, and that is the biggest challenge. To fill in the gap is the biggest challenge, so that is one. And the second thing is, yes, the government of different countries, the different states have a say onto this, where we need to follow certain things, right? Those are the major issues that we face. And the other issue is that the growing demands need to be, like the immediate action has to be taken. Yes, immediate action is never going to solve your problem. We need to technically think and approach the problems. That is a major issue. When I look into the now after the issue, like the weaknesses is only thing is that when we have to work along with the old terminal building or the expansion of a terminal building or a brownfield project, majorly. So though in that, we do not get the flexibility to design. We are dependent on the assets, the facilities already there, and we need to analyze. We need to analyze the facet and develop our structure or additional facilities. Depending on the already existing utilities or assets. So that is the biggest challenge, that as an architect also, doesn't give us the flexibility to think openly or to adapt, new designs, new concepts. So that is one of the kind of, you can say, weakness when we're designing. Strengths, yes. If you have a better locality, the site location, the accessibility, is a new green airport, you have a management, you have the stakeholders who are equivalent, like who are the partners also in technology. They go hand in hand with you, they understand the technology, and they give you liberty to work around the technology in your design and integrate it in your design, so that is the strength. So I think so. The threats, if I say, yes, climate risk are always a threat. Like Mr. Juzer said, the calculation, the water, the storm water, which is a major challenge for many airports. Similarly, for cold countries, is the de-icing is a major challenge. There's certain things which are the threats, like we don't know. Might be we are prepared, but when it all of a sudden there's a force measure or something, some airports are not prepared for that. Some airports are already prepared. It all depends on how you are understanding or how are you analyzing your climate analysis and the data that is for the next 50 years. So here AI also plays a major role, can actually understand the prehistoric trends and, help you in providing a informed decision when you are deciding on these parameters.
So I have a question for Rinor. I think you are someone with a lot of global exposure or global experience working in different climatic regions and all that. So as we speak about architecture, airport architecture, how do you think building envelopes can be designed to be energy efficient, especially for airports in hot, humid regions like India? Because I'm just particularly wanting to focus on India here. You could also give me insights globally.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, I think this is actually a little bit related to the question that Mr. Kothari just answered. And of course, in climates like India, we have to reduce the solar heat gain. So we have to be careful if the direct sun actually penetrates right through the building. So we have to create more shading. The elevation, the glass most likely should be leaning out with some cantilever roof. So we reduce direct sun and only the light that goes in is indirect. We have better insulation on the roof, so we don't have direct solar heat gain. We try to avoid skylights, and if we have to, in larger spaces, we have to put maybe shading devices on the skylights to reduce the solar heat gain. So this is the way to create an envelope that's more insulating. So we reduce the amount of solar heat gain that we get in hot areas. And of course, the smaller the airport we make, the less envelope area there is. So which means the less energy it takes to kind of offset the temperature difference between inside and outside. So yeah, those are very simple. I mean, there's glass today, which is highly insulative. It's a little bit more expensive, but it can achieve a very high R rating. So the use of technology and the use of right materials on the facade and the roof, it will kind of ease the pressure that's on the HVAC system to keep the space cool. So this is just a passive system that will help reduce the amount of energy used by the HVAC system.
So at the T2 terminal of Mumbai International Airport, one aspect of design which I found it very interesting that have been used is something called the dual skylight design. So if you see the T2 terminal from far, you'll see an undulating layer in the top. That is a polycarbonate sheet which allows the skylight to come in. And then internal, in the internal skin, you have lenses which are embedded in the internal roof skin, which then diffuses the light, the daylight inside. This was one of the most beautiful designs that I have seen in airports. By and large, I think Monalisha and Rinor can say that most of the airports at the top level, at the highest level, have skylights, and then they have something called the diffusers below the skylights to prevent glare. But what happens in such a case? The heat comes in anyway. And then the air conditioning system has got to remove the heat because you are dissipating the glare, but you are not doing anything with the heat. But with the dual skylight design, which is there in the T2 terminal, we are not allowing the heat to come in. And at the same time, we are not allowing the glare to come in. And if you happen to walk on the level 4 of the T2 terminal, you can look up and see those lenses in broad daylight at 12 o'clock. There is not a bit of glare from the skylights. Thank you.
Great. Okay. So I have one question to Renaud from what he actually started. Like you mentioned that you really don't need airports to be very large. So it's always better to reduce the size. But when we speak of terminal expansions or when we speak of airport expansions, don't you think expansions will add more construction activities and eventually more of again more energy into the system when all that like heating and all that? Like I'm asking this question to Renaud, but I'm sure everybody else also can give their insights.
Okay, yeah, I'll start first. It's a very good question because airports are so complicated there and they're always growing. And when cities build mega airports, they always have to estimate on how many flights they will have 10 years from now or 15 years from now. So it's a very risky business. And you always have to think of the future, build for the future, and then make sure that that airport size can accommodate at least 20 years without expanding. I think the answer is modularity, having piers that are extendable by adding modules. Each gate each bridge includes the gate, and that's one module. So having the ability to build modules on site and then bring them in and attach them to the end of the pier, and then you can keep growing that way. I think that's one aspect that can be tested and used, but it gives a lot of flexibility rather than building everything at once and waiting for many years for it to fill until you become larger, then expand with a new terminal. I think modularity is the answer. And I think if we make airports smaller and decentralized, we can grow easier, because once airport is centralized, all the processes are centralized, then yeah, we can grow piers, but then how do we grow the check-in area? So this is expanding this. So you have different parts of the airport which have to grow separately. When we do a decentralized airport, we can actually grow pieces of the airport that function independently. So I think modularity is the answer when you want to grow at any time and be flexible.
Okay, so Monalisha or Juzer, any other perspectives to this you can please add?
There's so many ways of looking at it. But I do agree with Rinor. I think he has taken up a very nice challenge that how do you compress the airport? And I think that's what we need to do. The airports are just becoming larger and larger. And I think, I mean, it's a nice challenge to solve. That's about it.
I have a point to add here. See, when we are expanding, like I said, green revolution or the green revolution in aviation will be the ultimate disruption for our generation, you know. But when we are looking for expanding airport, we will be expanding, you know, not in a traditional way, like we used to go for bigger airport, you know. Like Rinor said, it can be decentralized and we can go modularity. And again, that modularity, the module that we need to choose has to be tech enabled. You know, it has to, the space can be functional. You know, it need not to be restricted. We have to think, you know, beyond 20 years when we are going for any expansion now. Like we have to think, okay, this 20-year span is going to reach, you know, going to reach our aviation sector very fast, less than 10 years because of the technology. The demands that we are looking for, the ATM movements that we're looking for we are going to achieve it very soon. Like examples are there, any airports, those who have been planned for the next 10 years, the capacity, you know, they have achieved that capacity, the ATM movements and everything within the 5 years of expanding the airport or creating the new airport. So we have to now think beyond that. When we think beyond that, yes, we can look for, it can be two solutions. It can be a compact airport, tech-enabled airport, smart airport, and at the same time, we can look into, instead of 20 years, it can still serve the another 10 years with the advanced technology. Basically, all your infrastructure should be able to align with the new technology, you know, for operational requirements. Majorly is operational requirements. So.
Okay, great. So I have one question for Mr. Juzer. So you have been involved extensively with the Mumbai International T2 terminal. So what were the particular challenges that you encountered while working on this? And this is perhaps the first airport in India to go green. So if you can just touch upon the challenges and how did you mitigate them? Like, what are your methodologies for that?
I think we started working at the T2 for the T2 terminal way back in 2007, 2008, which we now almost 16, 17 years back. So we initially were commissioned to do a series of simulation studies for daylighting, for internal lighting, for glare, for energy, etc. In those days, simulations were not too popular and hardly anyone knew how to do simulations. We were lucky that we had done a few complex simulations and were able to do that. And when we did these studies and the data that came out, and the architects for this project were SOM, and CH2M Hill were the program managers for this particular project. When the data came out, they were quite astonished to see the data because it was not matching what they thought about the design. The data was not, coherent with the design was there in the mind. So there was a lot of back and forth going on what is right, the simulations are right, or the design is right. And there were no benchmarks. So one of the people suggested that we follow the LEED benchmarks. That's how we got into the greenness of the airport. So we followed the LEED benchmarks for daylighting, for energy. We followed the ASHRAE 90.1 baseline benchmarks. The initial challenge was that none of the benchmarks were meeting the design, or the design was not meeting the benchmarks. So the architects and the engineers at SOM and CH2M Hill, they really went into it, and number of changes were made to actually meet those benchmarks, to meet those guidelines from the simulation process. And quite a bit of design was changed in the process. One of the things that came out were the polycarbonate sheets, the specifications of that, what is the VLT, what is the solar heat gain coefficient, what is the lens details, how they could be. And very beautifully, the engineers there were able to match the lens with the daylit lux level as well as the artificial light lux level. So if you go into the airport in the morning time, you can see some light. And then in the night time, when you go, you will see the same light intensity. You cannot make out that it is different in the day and different in the night. That's what the engineers were able to achieve. And energy, we had a real challenge. We had to look at all aspects of HVAC, which is the biggest ticket, and the chiller, COPs, the efficiencies, the pumping systems, the balance of plants, the air handling units, everything was actually simulated, calibrated with the simulation studies, and then decided. So it was very challenging, and we were involved in the project right from 2007 to 2013 when it was commissioned. And a lot of my personal learning has happened during the course of this project.
Okay, thank you for this. So about airport and construction, like how do you think or how closely must airports work with stakeholders, governments, energy sector, and other industries to achieve sustainability goals?
I think it's all interconnected. It's all integrated, Anupama. I mean, the government wants the airport. The architects need to design the airport. The environmental engineers wants to make sure that the impact is the lowest. Efficiencies are important because at the end of it, they have to run the airport efficiently. So everyone is interconnected, and the goal is the same, to create an efficient airport, which has the lowest operating cost, the lowest capex cost, and it serves the community well, and has the lowest carbon footprint. So the carbon bit has been added off late. Way back in the 2007, 2008, there was no talk much about carbon, but there was a lot of talk about energy efficiency, water efficiency, indoor air quality, etc. But now it's carbon also as a part of that.
Yeah, I think it's very important, like Mr. Kothari just mentioned, that all the stakeholders are in the same room from the beginning. I would even add the contractor as well, and they agree on a goal together with environmental engineers, together with the client and the contractor, if possible, from the beginning on how to make an airport that's more sustainable. So I think it's important to have everyone on board from the beginning and set a goal for the team as a whole, and then work on it together, rather than doing the design, then bringing the environmental engineer, bringing the engineer, then later the contractor. I think it won't be as successful of a sustainable goal until we bring everyone together from the beginning.
Okay, that's great. And Monalisha can add her inputs as
I think most of the things has been covered. Only I just need to add, if I go on a strategic level, this has to be like everybody, the key stakeholders have to have a shared vision on sustainability even before they have a business charter. Like the business charter is like a guideline for you to understand what is your scope, what is your vision, and how are what are the missions to achieve that vision. And everybody should have a shared vision for that. You know, the vision should be the same for everybody. And that is how we can come up with the numbers going forward, what is achievable, what is not achievable. So all this debating can happen even before the initiation of the project. That will not only save a lot of time, but also will lead you on the sustainable path, the sustainable operation, you can say.
okay. Thank you for that. I think it was a really lovely session today, and I thank all my panelists for taking their time out and joining us for as speakers for this webinar.